A very good evening, friends. I'm delighted to present two very eminent and talented individuals to you today. We have with us Anandjit Goswami, the writer, who will be in conversation with an individual who needs no introduction in Kolkata, Raju Raman, our dear Raju Raman. It's going to be a riveting session, I assure you. And without further ado, I will quickly introduce them and then hand it over to Rajuda. Okay, I start with Mr. Raju Raman. S.V. Raman, popularly known as Raju Raman, is a die-hard Calcuttan by and since birth. A cultural curator and facilitator for over 5 decades, he is presently the program consultant at the Victoria Memorial Hall and a familiar figure in the cultural fraternity of the city. A guest faculty for communication, German films at various institutions. He is also a freelance journalist as well as anchor and moderator for various events in the city. He is associated with many social and cultural organizations in various capacities. Rajita, thank you so much for coming this evening and for agreeing to be in conversation with Anandjit, and all the very best. And we are very, very honored to have you today.
Thank you very much, Mona.
Thank you. Anandjit Goswami has a PhD in energy economics and policy from Terry School of Advanced Studies and Masters in International Trade and Economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, where he was also a Ford Foundation Scholar, which was earned through a merit-based entrance and relative grade-based semester system. In the past, he has also worked with TERI, the Energy and Resource Institute, and TERI School of Advanced Studies, which is called TERI SAS. At TERI SAS, he taught several courses like art and sustainability, economics and sustainability, mathematics for sustainability for 8 years. Anandjit, thank you once again for being part of the Readers and Writers Club. And the next 45 to 50 minutes, I'm sure, will be a very, very exciting and an engaging session for the viewers. Over to you, Rajita.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mona. And good evening to you, Mr. Anandjit Goswami. For the convenience of this session and to keep the flow going, may I address you as Anandjit through this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can call me Anandjit, Anando, whatever you want.
Okay, fine. That makes it simpler. Right. Now, when you talk about something, they always say that, it's always good to start at the very beginning. Yeah. And this, of course, this particular book, Lucy 3, is the third in your trilogy on Lucy. And this one is called Lucy and the Rise of the Parabola. But I would like to go to the very beginnings and ask you, what was your inspiration for embarking on this journey of doing this trilogy? Maybe at the beginning you didn't intend it as a trilogy, possibly wanted to do only one. So what was the main inspiration for embarking on this journey?
Can I call you Rajuda or?
Yeah, of course. No. Mr. Raman is too formal.
Okay, so Rajuda, what?
That if you call me Mr. Raman, that makes me sound like I've come from Parabola or something with ulterior motives.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, Rajuda, as you said that I never thought of a trilogy. Frankly speaking, the book, as you can see, is love, understanding, creativity, and youth is more of a self-reflection over the years. self-reflection, introspection of almost an 18 to 19 years of journey working on sustainability science and policy space. So I think I was traveling in this very unknowingly in a very chaotic space without any destination, and I was jotting down whatever I was observing around me. And there were many things that I could not say in my professional space. So somewhere that had to be told, and that was told finally in the form of a plot. And I think I was lucky enough that Anjanadi liked the work, and then Anjanadi suggested one of the publisher that this plot and story needs to be published, and that's how Lucy happened. So Lucy, the first one, was essentially the draft version was a big one. It was around 200 pages. But finally, the Lucy, the first book, is almost just 72 to 80 page.
Mhm.
So I kept on filtering, so as much editing as I can do, so that what I always wanted that the every line should create an open space for the future. I didn't know what the future, how, what and how the future will pan out. As I said, that I never planned a trilogy. So that's how at least a self-reflection happened, and the book came out.
You see, at the time that you planned this, we didn't even have this pandemic. Now, during the
Yeah.
time of this pandemic, now we say that we are living for the moment, and we don't know what the
Yeah.
future holds for us. You see, even tomorrow. But maybe when you started writing this, that was not the case. You know, you
Yeah.
certainly had some kind of an objective, somewhere that your futuristic ideas you thought would also bear fruit in some way, right? So there was more hope than what we have today in reality. Of course, in your kind of preface, I have come across certain names, and I presume that these have also been kind of inspirations on the way. Like I've seen that you have mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, you know, about leading simple lives so that you can make it simple for others and so on. Or you have even started off by saying, these kind of questions are the answer is blowing in the wind, right? Uh, or you have mentioned a whole lot of other people who have possibly whose works have inspired you. There is a lot of melange of philosophies, if I may put it that way, even in the course of your narrative in this book, right? So, would you care to mention some of these kind of inspirations apart from the fact that you were a diehard person for sustainability, and there were certain things which you could not say in your professional life, and you sought an avenue to say what you wanted to say.
Actually, when I was writing Lucy, the first one, parallelly I was also writing a book on how every chapter of Lucy was actually based on my own readings on philosophy. So I am a little lucky that my mom was a philosophy teacher. So because of her library and because of her readings and books, I got exposed to all readings on Eastern, Western, Oriental, different philosophy genres and writers and great thinkers and philosophers, what they are trying to do. So I always had a plan that someday I will write something, and as I was saying, that it was accumulating within me. And so every chapter of Lucy, the first one, is actually emerging from a genre or a discourse of a certain philosophical thought. To those some of the inspirations I have mentioned, but I also in the first book had said and many more. So, for
And
instance,
many more.
there was there were a say because I strongly feel that I'm not doing something new. Before me, or parallelly, simultaneously with me, there are many people who are doing very good work in this discourse, and it's something that I am trying to bridge everything together in a plot and trying to communicate it in one way.
Hmm.
But one thing that I have never said in any public interview, which I would like to say today, For instance, if you see the Lucy first book, the chapter 3 has been very strongly influenced by Spinoza. So Spinoza's underlining thinking, which over the years I read, but I had to simplify it. So if any child reads Lucy 1, the chapter 3, the child will not be able to, the child doesn't need to know about Spinoza, but it is Spinoza in a different way. So today I'm making that declaration. For instance, the thought of Spinoza that, okay, when we see moon, the moon is nearer when we see to it. But the knowledge and wisdom says that actually moon is quite far away.
Right.
So what is the difference between an experiential poet and the actual true scientific knowledge? What is knowledge? Facts, information with your experience. Because if I stand on a roof and I see a moon, imagine that, okay, I don't know anything. I have never read anything, or I have no idea. I will just see the moon and I will have an experience of a full moon night. I might think that the full moon is so near to me. But in reality, the science says that, okay, it is a satellite. There's a NASA, and you have to go, and there's a certain journey that you need to take. Now, this interplay or the tension of something, what knowledge and experience and wisdom, that comes out of Spinozian thinking. So I have done a reading. There are different philosophers I can cite, but I just took this as an example.
Oh, you have
And
also
that
mentioned
inspired,
you have also mentioned Descartes somewhere.
right.
Yeah.
Descartes is, I think, therefore I am, because if the Lucy one book starts with the quote, I think, therefore I am.
I
So that
think
was a
therefore I
subtle,
am.
the subtle signal that I gave in Lucy 1 was that this book, every chapter is actually a kind of a philosophical assimilation, though I'm not telling it explicitly. Because
Right.
when I was writing the book, I will not be dishonest, I also wanted people to read the book. I did not
Right.
want it to be a philosophical jargon. But at the core, at the back, it was this writing. I mean, the entire Descartian thought. Later on, I was thinking about that from 1629, when Descartes started questioning the Catholics, that one religious discourse which was believing on Christ as one identity, and they were not they were denying that, okay, everything is coming from Christ. So we don't have a multiple universe, but today the quantum physics and everything, the space science is telling us about multiverses, quantum existence of multiverses. So I knew at that point of time that how the early philosophers, say for instance Descartes, when he was questioning these religious thinking or the dogmatic thinking of one Christ, one agent, one supremo creating the universe, at the back there is also scientific discourse to it. So Lucy has that underlining of every philosophical thought through the eyes of the child.
So that brings me directly to my next question to you. You see, Lucy is a child, and you wanted the innocent mind of a child to go into the future and take all this without any bias whatsoever, right? And that was the idea, which is why you have also mentioned that it is somewhat like Alice in Wonderland, going through the rabbit hole, or Harry Potter, okay, that Hogarth's different kind of thinking and so on. Now, what was your target readership in mind when you started writing this? Because on the one hand, the child is a protagonist, right? But on the other hand, there is a lot of philosophy packed into it. So is it a book even for children, or would you say it's a book for adults?
Well, the question that you have asked, it took me. So I started writing Lucy 1 from 2009 as short notes. The book finally comes out in 2015 end. So that journey from 2009 to 2015, it took me a time to figure out how I package or how I assimilate the theoretical foundation, but also simplify it so that it targets from 8 to 80. I mean, it took a
Mhm.
lot of time for me to simplify and
Yes.
also still tell a story. It took 6 years, and
Yeah.
still tell a story which is appealing to all the mass, every reader. Because my simple assumption was that every human being has an imagination. So what will be that one line in every chapter? I have to be very particular about every line and word, which is the most simple expression for that line, underneath which there are all these layers and readings of mine over the last 19 to 20 years. And that takes
Hmm.
time. So as I'm
Yeah.
saying, so when my publisher, so many publishers initially rejected. And as I'm saying, I'm grateful to Anjuna and Terry Press, who thought that no, this book is something very unique on sustainability, and this book should come out. And but this question I faced for 6 months. Okay, who we should sell this book? And my answer was that I have written this for last 6 years for 8 to 80. I think anyone can read that book because
Yeah.
I
Of
was very
course.
clear.
Of
I
course,
was very
anyone can
clear
read
on
that
that.
book, or anyone should read that book also, because the
Well,
issues that are dealt with are very, very important. But at the same time,
the,
you see, when you say 8 to 80, yeah, now, you see, in a particular way, we are talking about climate change, we are talking about sustainability, we are talking about climate reversal also at some point of time. Now, when it comes to climate change, we already in our existing setup on this earth have two categories of people: the younger people, who can now easily blame us, the elder generation, for having destroyed everything and not having left them what we should have left them. Yeah. So corrective measures have to be taken. Whether it is too late to take these corrective measures or not is something that has got to be decided. Now, there, don't you think it's better that it is addressed more at the youth, who are still capable of action in this direction, whereas the older generation, which is in the dock already for having created this chaos, possibly doesn't have the answers to what can happen. I look at it that way.
no, you are right, Rajuda. So the politics of what you are saying also is in the name Lucy. So
Yeah,
youth, love,
yeah, yeah. It's their
understanding,
understanding,
creativity.
creativity. Yeah.
So why I chose these four letters,
Mhm.
this thought came on my mind, is that the youth has to join hands with the love and understanding of the past generation, who will understand the youth, and the youth will also understand the elder generation, because I don't think modernity and youthfulness has anything to do with age. I
Mhm.
think youthfulness can be in any generation.
Of
But
course.
how they join hands, how they
Mhm.
co-create together a dream, a future, because sustainability is also a dream. I mean, it is not defined. It is just like fiction. I mean, once someone asks what is fiction, we don't know what is fiction.
Mhm.
So sustainability in a way is also like that. So it is very abstract. It is that merging of the abstraction with a definite sense, where the word four letters came. And
Right.
I made the character name Lucy, but also there was an inspiration. The skeletal that I had seen in Addis Ababa, the
Mhm.
earliest symbol of humanity, Lucy
Mhm.
the skeletal. When I was there, I had thought, when I was drafting my initial thoughts about Lucy, I had thought of that, okay, if the symbol of humanism can also be subtly told. So with every character name, with every chapter, there are many layers and stories and politics, so which we can talk for
Yes,
hours.
yes, but we can really talk for hours on this, but our time is limited. Now, I want to jump on to another question. I want to ask, uh, in these three books, you have used uh, kind of mediums or vehicles, if I may call them so, in the form of a ship, a train, and now you're coming to spacecrafts and so on. Uh, Now, how did this kind of transition happen, and why particularly these kind of vehicles that you have chosen?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for this question because the first time someone actually touched my subconscious. So
Yeah.
actually, each of the vehicles are a character by themselves.
Hmm.
So a train is a character to me. A ship is a character to me. A character of mobility, a character of class, a character of consciousness.
But
So
a
that
slow
the
mobility. Ship also
slow,
symbolizes a
slow.
slow mobility, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
slow mobility because the that subtle signaling also I'm doing through the using a certain transportation medium. And then
Hmm.
in the third, we come to a spaceship,
Yes.
fast mobility. So see, it also has a signal for the way the society is moving,
Hmm.
how humanity as an exosomatic being, this urge to control, the urge to be mobile, the urge to move from one frontier to the other. So philosophically, the question is, okay, from one point to the other, Lucy, through the protagonist also, along with the society and the class structure, through this metaphor of the vehicle, is moving gradually in the three books.
Right. I love the train concept very much, of course. Yeah. Train is always a fascinating thing, even if you see in films. They keep on recurring as a motive all the time, starting from Potir Panchali to whatever, even early Hollywood films or whatever you take it. Train is a wonderful vehicle where uh, each compartment can be said to be one different class or sect of people, or a different generation altogether. So that is wonderful. Or like in Africa, somebody remarked when a train was coming in, saying that there is a dragon which is coming in and it is spouting fire. The steam that was coming out of the thing, and was saying, and it is bringing entire villages along with it, because each compartment had a lot of people, right? So a lot of different perspectives come into play when you're using these kind of vehicles, right? But then you have also brought in the park as a kind of leitmotif, yeah, the greenery of the park. Now, you have always been propagating in this particular book, and probably in your earlier ones too, uh, a kind of melange of the ideal, the utopian, versus something that is real and which you cannot wish away. Now, this kind of ideal melange that you are talking about, is that wishful thinking, or do you think that is a distinct possibility?
No, so Rajida, so what happens when or what has happened over the years? I've always been under a conflict of heightened reality and displaced reality.
Right.
So when I think of writing a fiction or when I create Lucy as a journey with my co-author Devashish Chakraborty. The tension within me is always a tension of heightened reality and displaced reality. Now, fiction to me is also always is having a tension between heightened and displaced. Now, why I say this? I mean, everyone say there's this popular quote between when they say fiction is stranger than truth and truth is stranger than fiction. So, in that narrative, if I assume truth is a displaced reality and fiction is a heightened reality.
Right.
So again I am using
Mhm.
metaphors of heightened reality and displaced reality. Certain areas in the third book in the parabola Lucy and the rise of the parabola, I've also used dark uh, magic realism.
Mhm.
Okay, so where a character, for instance, you must have seen there is a constant sentence which is playing as a just like an interlude where I'm saying his emblem, his shadow. So Madhyam, for a long time in the book progression, I didn't take the name of Madhyam. I was using a pronoun.
Yes.
Now that's deliberate. That was deliberately used. The
Yeah,
pronoun is
you have
deliberately.
already answered my next question. Yeah, I was
Oh,
coming to
oh,
Madhyam and why Madhyam's descendant was always being
exactly,
referred to as Madhyam's descendant and did not have a
exactly.
name. Yeah. So you
And
have already
that,
come to that. Yeah. Very good.
that's that's
Carry on.
that's a very subtle signal to the reader that that existence is where the reader can also play with his or her or anyone's displaced reality and heightened reality. And towards the later in the plot, I demystify it, where I give a structure, where I'm saying, okay, that was maybe a ghost, that was
Yeah.
someone who was watching, who
Yeah.
knows that whether it existed or not. So it is in a way our own projection. Anyways, that's it. I won't
Yeah,
disclose more.
but then, no, don't disclose more because people should have the pleasure of reading it also. But when you talk about a kind of ghost, yeah, now somewhere in this book also, these kind of ghosts come across as invisible uh, spies, you know, a kind of espionage. Yeah, you, because nowadays you don't know, you know, who the enemy is. Most of the time they are invisible, right? You don't see them, and this has probably happened from the First World War, which changed the whole concept of combat, right? Before
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
when it was Mahabharata or Ramayana or Ram versus Ravan and so on, one always
direct.
knew who the adversary was. The person was there, and there were certain codes of ethics that were followed. But since the First World War, this enemy became invisible. You didn't know who was throwing the bombs, who was watching on you. And even now, we have this constant expression of Big Brother is watching. And with all this
Right,
social media, you really don't
right,
know who is actually watching and who is monitoring you all the time, right? So
right.
this kind of Madhyam or Madhyam's descendant, you know, comes across as some kind of a mysterious character, you know, even while I'm
And
reading the book,
it
because
was
yeah, it
deliberately
was
done.
deliberate.
Uh,
Towards the end, some people may even interpret whether these are people who have joined hands with the enemy.
yeah,
Yeah, see, that kind
because
of hint is also given. Could
because
be.
we wanted to make even magic realism mix with ghost, darkness, and everything, creating an aura. Even the scene where the whiff of air is whirling around, and the way it is described, it is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
zone of uncertainty, as you were saying.
Mm.
So that is
And
very visually written.
yeah, this zone of uncertainty is something I will come back to because I myself find some connections for this zone of uncertainty and this shadowy kind of uncertainty. Uh, but before that, as you have mentioned, your co-author, Debashish Chakraborty, yeah, I wish he had been here today also in the conversation. But I would like to ask you, how does your team work in tandem? You know, how does such a co-authorship work? Who does the ideation? Who kind of vets it, and who kind of
Yeah.
finally gives the green signal and says, "Yeah, this is
Right.
the final."
No, with Devashish, the best thing is that he knows me since 2002.
Hmm.
Our academic training has been in the same center in JNU. Our
Hmm.
readings, writings, he has been my mentor even before I started. For instance, when I wrote Lucy, the first one, when I wrote, I was not confident. Okay, whatever I have written. So he told me that this is a fantastic work, and you should go ahead. So he gave me that confidence also, that okay, this
Hmm.
work should come out. So with Devashishda, it's not an issue. So, and we follow a process. So how the way it happens is that I generally make a plot outline and character outline for every the last two books Devashishda and I have co-authored, Lucy Meets
Right.
Artificial Intelligence and this one. So I generally make a timeline of the characters with how the characters will shape, how the plot will shape. When I send to Devashishda, and we create a working draft one document, and we are constantly doing back and forth in that, and there are many agreements, disagreements. So because we want work on different colors, and then finally it spontaneously happens. Then when we agree and say that this is the final draft, I think this can go, though we are not convinced even in the final draft, but yeah, we generally decide, okay, this can go out, something like that.
Because if you do not do that, then no work will get completed anytime. If you're keeping on running after perfection all the time, it will always be a work in progress, right?
I mean,
And will never
even
see
for
the light of day.
Lucy and the Rise of the Parabola, I remember there was one chapter, one para, on which Devashishda and I had to do a back and forth for 4 weeks. We were not, so I was writing a line, he was adding, we were not getting convinced that it has the right content. And then we decided, okay, let's stop it. It has to go forward.
You already mentioned that the first book you had started thinking about and writing already in 2007, did you say, or 9? 2007 or 9?
2009, I had started drafting my own notes and writing.
Own notes. And by the time it came out, it was 2015.
16, the book release happened. Mona and Sushruto did a book release in 2016 in Oxford Bookstore.
But subsequently, the next two have come out in a shorter period of time. Do you think that like these vehicles that you took from the ship to the train to the spaceship, your speed has also been increasing over time?
No, I really don't believe in speed if the direction and insight is wrong. What happened was that I got the time of 6 years to at least get the direction where largely the book will move. And even while I was writing the first one, I was constantly also drafting the second. And those second were very scratchy, but it was happening parallelly. Though my focused attention was on the first.
Right.
And the third one happened. Actually, I didn't decide the third one. So Devashishda and I sat together. So Devashishda and I thought, okay, we both questioned each other that is it worth to go for a third one? If it's not worth to go for a third one, if we are not convinced, we will not try. Then we discussed and then we created, and yes, then we as a team believed that there is a room and space for a third one, and it was done.
Right. You have this character called Rohin, and you somehow link Rohin with the Rohingya refugees, right, or the descendants, and this keeps on recurring. Even when you're talking about the parabola, you're talking about a class of refugees over there. So, are you in a way trying to say that whatever we may try, this kind of class distinction is going to remain maybe in an elevated level in some way, but the distinction is something which is very difficult to wish away. However much progress we might make in terms of technology, artificial intelligence, or whatever, because it's a recurring kind of theme, and the word refugee is intentionally used, even in the case of parabola.
Right. So here I will again link to the answer of or the discussion that we had on displaced reality and heightened reality. So let's
Right.
assume we are sitting today.
Mm.
Yash, the cyclone has happened. The cyclone is bound to create, and several such pre-monsoon tropical cyclones are going to increase. So the reality, the displaced reality is changing. The reality of the people who are moving from that place, suddenly the next day they have lost their home, their things are washed away in water.
Right.
That's a displaced reality. Now, what I call
Yes.
heightened reality is that if I change the same climate refugee plot intact, but I bring and completely zone of uncertainty, as you said, Raju, that okay, even with AI, even with the best of the best technology, even with a humanoid, even with the dark unknown force which is watching us, the truth and the daily displaced reality of these people, the Rohingyas in this case is different because I took more of the. I'm linking to climate refugee, but Rohingya problem is completely different. But
Right.
the point is that the crisis of climate refugees can also get heightened. They have a
Right.
displaced reality today. It can get heightened with something coming, and it can still stay same. We don't know. It
Mm.
can still stay still. It can still be kept at the subsistence level. So the same holds for any displacement issue on Earth that can come from terrorism, that can come from climate disasters, that can come from state forces, that can come from any sovereignty issues, nationality issues, anything. The reality is with which what we are playing.
Okay, you used the word terrorism. You have given me the cue for the next thing. I wanted to talk about that too, because one gets the impression that terrorism also rears its ugly face in different forms, in different ways. Yeah. Now, uh, even if it is a kind of interplanetary arrangement that one is trying to make, an agreement that one is trying to make, even there is a question of sabotage. There is an element of terrorism over there, because unless you bring in the element of terrorism, it is not taken notice of in some way. You don't make your point. Yeah. So do you think that will remain? In spite of all the kind of progress we make and the problems that we solve.
Right. Actually, Rajudha, the last two chapters are a kind of, because of owing to my readings on international relations and politics of terrorism. The plot is very much showing how international relations and terrorism in a heightened reality, in
Mhm.
a heightened reality space, is going to take
Mhm.
a new form.
Right.
Maybe we need to think of a new international relation perspective
Yeah.
in a heightened reality. And yes, that is the hypothesis, or that is the academic hypothesis behind that simple plot. And rather,
Correct.
someone is making a declaration, and towards the end, as in the book, we don't know who is a terrorist.
Mm.
That is also a question, because when Faith makes that statement, and anyways, I won't tell more about the
No.
story.
No.
So, so,
Don't
so that
divulge the story. Yeah.
so that is what also, that when tomorrow in a heightened reality space international relations shapes up, maybe we need to think of a new institutional structure. Who knows how UN will shape up
Mm.
in a new
Mm.
heightened reality with
Yeah,
with
that's right.
with
Your Earth Committee, or whatever it is called here, the Earth Team, as it is called, yeah, uh, does represent certain bodies that exist, or is akin to certain bodies that exist. That's true. But you see, the kind of, you talked about faith now at the moment, right? Now, faith also is something that seems to be deserting well-intentioned people at some point of time in your narrative also. This is the feeling that Lucy is also getting, that faith
yeah,
has possibly deserted her. So
yeah.
do you think that this is bound to happen, that fate sometimes takes a back seat.
So faith also is a metaphor at the same time.
Mm.
Faith here, so when the word faith was used, so faith in the sense, actually the problem of the current societal structure is the trust and the faith. So when I am saying that faith is deserting from Lucy, that faith means anything. It is faith on an establishment, it is a faith on anti-establishment, it is a faith, so it is more faith on an ideation process. So initially when faith was with Lucy,
Mm.
it was the overlapping ideational process of the both, and which was matching, but also there is a contradiction within faith also. Faith is still protective of Lucy, even though deserting her. So I think the in a heightened reality space, it is these contradictions and the challenges of these contradictions that sustainability science is going to face in future.
Yes, but uh, whatever the present, past, or future, it seems that there is always a nexus between scientists, politicians, and industrialists, which gets reflected in your narrative as well.
Agreed. I think based on my academic and historical reading on these area of research, that how
Mhm.
historically on Earth science policies, science advancement always also had a tie up with industrialization discourse, and what was the human politics behind that.
Mhm.
I there was a it was very intentional. So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
wanted to
it is
highlight
quite
that.
obvious. It's quite obvious that it is
Yeah.
intentional. Yeah, because history says so. History does tell us this. Whether you talk about the Nazi period or anything, there is this nexus all the time between scientists, between politicians, between industrialists, right? And it is this nexus which has possibly been having control of affairs uh, at the global level, at the local level, which is now turning global in some way. Yeah, everything is turning global. Even the power equations are turning global in some way or the other, right? And
Yeah.
which you have taken at a heightened reality beyond the Earth also, to satellite and parabola. But then, when it comes to satellite, it also talks about people with more artificial intelligence who have been using. But then sometimes they also come across as villains of the piece. Now, is that also intentionally portrayed that way? That in artificial intelligence, there could be a kind of uh, villainy or bad intention
Yeah.
embedded
Yeah.
because of human interference.
Agreed, because absolutely right, Rajuda. Because it also is based on the reference frame of who is a villain, how who is a villain in your eyes.
Mm,
So someone can be a hero in someone's reference frame, can be turn out to be a villain in other reference frame. So
right.
it is also this. It is also when I'm experimenting with this displaced and heightened reality, I'm also simultaneously playing with the reference frames.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that's what comes.
Now tell me, why did you choose this jump of 100 years? 2150, 2250, 2350. Why 100 years? Because in today's age and time, 100 years is a lot of time. Things are happening at such a rapid pace that we would possibly say that that is what is going to be happening in 2150, right? And then maybe from 2150 you think of just 2200, but then you jump 100 years at a time. Why particularly this figure of 100?
Okay, there was a science behind that. So the science
Yeah.
is the core of the Lucy's first plot, or it was a climate sci-fi or sci-fi with dystopia. There's a climate disaster that is happening. Now, in climate modeling, we always go by decadal growth rates, 10. So Devashish and I thought, okay, if 10 is the base unit, so let us have our imagination, because as I was telling you, we make the process of timeline and characters.
Right.
So I told Devashish that let's have 10 intervals, 10 units. And in 10 units, let's imagine how the reality space is changing.
Okay.
So that's how 100 years. But there is another narrative behind 100 years. It is also Stephen Hawking's declaration that by in the next 100 years, there is a possibility of extinction of human race and being taken over by. I think that is a statement that he made. I mean, I am not exactly remembering the number which is stated, but it was somewhere around 100 years. So one was this climate sense of 10 units. The other was the horizon that is being portrayed by him.
Okay.
The heightened reality again.
Okay. Of course, heightened reality in all senses. In this particular book, you see, in one sense, parabola comes as a kind of savior, okay, with some solutions, but at a cost, right? So, it, it gives the impression that it comes with a solution, but also wants a pound of flesh in some way, like Shylock. So nothing comes out of humanitarian grounds. There is always an ulterior motive, because you're talking about excess of water on the earth, yeah, and whether that can be broken up into hydrogen and things, and that whether water can be used as fuel, etc., etc. It would be wonderful if we have a day like that, if that heightened reality becomes a reality, right? But even initially, if parabola is coming as a savior for the earth, and this agreement with parabola is in a way to also ward off satellite or the ais of satellite, or keep them in check in some way, it is also coming at some kind of a price, yeah. So you think this is never going to change, just as
No.
nowadays we get the vaccine only at a
Yeah.
price at a private hospital, and they can charge whatever they want, yeah. So that is
Yeah.
not going to change, you think?
Yeah. I always think whatever we do, we always pay a price. I mean, we can the way of seeing the price can be different, but there
Right.
is a price. I mean, price might not always be seen in terms of a paper which we call money on the planet Earth.
Mhm.
That price can be in terms of many other forms and different ways. So yes,
Uh,
I do agree.
you agree with that, right? Okay. We are coming almost to the end now. I have one or two more questions before we wind up. One is, uh, what is the significance of the balloon seller?
Okay, fine. So balloon, I use in a way balloon is also a metaphor
Yeah, I know. I
of
know it's a
dream.
metaphor. Yeah.
It's a metaphor of dream. It's so a balloon also stays on sometimes can stay on the ground. It can move up.
It can
Again,
fly.
balloon is a metaphor. It can so balloon is also where I'm elevating the reality. There's
Yeah, and
balloon
also
seller is
balloon comes across to me as a kind of inflation of something, inflation of a
right,
thought, inflation of a dream or whatever.
right,
Right?
right. So this character balloon seller is coming repetitively in a very, as you questioned and said, that in a very subtle, mysterious way,
Mm.
back and forth in time,
Yeah.
which we have given a hint. Now, why back and forth in time a balloon seller? Because the balloon seller is also a metaphor of reality, which is a function of time, which is changing with time. So that's why we had to bring in the balloon seller
Correct.
as as a symbol.
Mm. Okay.
Plus, there was
Uh,
also another mystery which I can't disclose. People have to
mm,
read the book.
right. No, better not disclose. I would say, but the shadowy part that you were referring to earlier, the dark things. I myself find while reading the book also certain similarities with things in history like uh, German expressionist cinema. Yeah, I find a lot of similarity in the kind of writing because not even the moving back and forth in time, which is a very kind of uh, useful tool in cinema where you can jump in time from one to the other, but also this kind of shadowy kind of portrayal of things uh, reminds me sometimes of this. And even those people were ahead of their times in depicting what they were depicting. You know, if you take Fritz Lang's Metropolis, for instance, the kind of modern things that have been depicted in that, or which came later on in Chaplin's Modern Times and so on, they became a reality in our lives much, much later. Yeah. So this kind of going into the future, the way you have done in your novel, to try and take corrective measures in the present is possibly a tool which could work if we took it a little more seriously and make it action oriented for the present. And which is why I'm talking of the youth aspect of your Lucy, that it should be addressed particularly to the youth so that they can become action oriented on certain matters as far as climate, as far as sustainability is concerned. Then possibly some of the damages, some of the losses, some of the irreversible things which we cannot do anything about may not happen in larger dimensions in the future. Is what I feel. Yeah. So it has been wonderful talking to you, Anandajit. It's great,
so much.
And it's always great moving into the future. There is a bit of, I didn't want to divulge that, there is a bit of element of soothsaying, future telling, fortune telling, also on the part of some of the parents of these people who are predicting the future for their children, which they carry forward as stories. But we leave that for the audience to read and interpret on their own. Maybe there are some questions for you from the listeners, audience. Mona, are there any?
No, there are comments, but no questions really.
If there is any comment worth sharing with Anandajit, you could do that.
No, they've congratulated Anandjit for his novel. Very generic, but I think they have, our listeners have to read the book to frame questions. I think so.
That's right. That's right. Because intentionally, one did not divulge much of the content of the book here, because otherwise, the readers would lose the pleasure of reading that. As they say, mojatai chole jabe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So wonderful. A lot of thoughts have been shared, and I'm really grateful to Anandajit for sharing all these thoughts with us. And it has made me ponder over a lot of issues. Not that I didn't ponder over such issues before, but in a much more focused way. And whether that climate reversal is actually going to happen, whether it is only a wishful thinking on our part, remains to be seen, of course. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rajuda and Anandajit. It was a pleasure listening to you both. Learned quite a bit. And it was an eye-opener. Very, very interesting and engaging. And I'm sure the listeners will now pick up a copy of your book and have a good read. Thank you so much.
You could tell the listeners in these days of lockdown whether the book is available online.
Is it, Anandajit? It's available
I'm asking.
online.
It is available online in Amazon and Pustak Mandi, and there is a digital print also.
So one doesn't have to wait for the lockdown to be lifted.
We'll share the link. We'll share the link so that they actually go and purchase the book. And thank you so much, and looking forward to such sessions. Anandajit, keep writing and keep penning, and Rajida, as always, it's such a pleasure listening to you. Thank you
She
very
says,
much. Have a very
as
good
usual, she says, as usual, keep talking.
No, 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 not at all. You're one of the
I'm,
finest moderators I know. Thank you so
I'm
much. Thank you,
Okay.
Anandaji.
grateful
Stay
to
well.
grateful to Rajuda and Mona. Thank you so much for this
Thank you.
opportunity.
You're
And
most welcome.
Anandaji, all the best also to your co-author. Please convey that to him also. Yeah.
okay, I
Yes,
will do
from
All
that.
us
right.
I will
too.
do that.
Right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.